They were the stuff of legend, giants who walked the earth before the flood, beings of great power shrouded in mystery. They're only mentioned briefly, but the impact of their presence ripples through Scripture like a warning whispered from another world. Who were they? Why did they exist, and could they come again? Buried deep in Genesis, a passage hints at a time when heaven and earth collided, when the boundaries between the divine and the human blurred. These were days of darkness, corruption, and something unnatural. The earth, it says, was filled with violence, and God was grieved. These beings are called the Nephilim, and though they vanish almost as quickly as they appear, their presence continues to haunt the pages of Scripture and our imagination. Before we uncover the most shocking spiritual truths the Bible holds about these beings, do one thing. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us what you know about the Nephilim in the comments below. Your insight might just open someone else's eyes. Because behind the mystery of the Nephilim lies a story of rebellion, judgment, and divine mercy. This isn't just about giants, it's about the very nature of humanity. The Genesis 6 Enigma. Genesis 6 verses 1 through 4. It's one of the most cryptic and debated passages in all of Scripture. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. 4 verses. And yet they shake the foundations of our understanding of the ancient world. Who are these sons of God? Why do their union with human women produce beings so different, so powerful, that they are given their own name, Nephilim? Some translations simply call them giants, but the Hebrew root NPL implies to fall. Fallen ones. This short passage has inspired countless interpretations, ancient texts, and modern theories. But one thing is clear, this wasn't normal. Something had gone terribly wrong, and the Nephilim were at the heart of it. Let's take a closer look at the two most enduring theories behind their identity. Theories. Who were the Nephilim? Two main theories have echoed through centuries of theological debate, both rooted in ancient texts, both unsettling. The first and most controversial claims that the sons of God were fallen angels, celestial beings who crossed the boundary between heaven and earth, taking human wives. From this unnatural union, the Nephilim were born. Giants, corrupted hybrids, never meant to exist. This view is supported by the Book of Enoch, ancient Jewish tradition, and even some early church fathers like Justin Martyr and Tertullian. It's terrifying. A spiritual rebellion on a scale we can hardly imagine. Angelic beings not just defying God, but altering creation itself. A genetic trespass, a cosmic violation. These giants, according to this view, were abominations, soulless, violent, and utterly depraved. Their presence spread like a disease across the earth, threatening to erase the image of God in mankind. The second theory, safer in some ways, argues that the sons of God were the descendants of Seth, the righteous lineage, and the daughters of men were the corrupted line of Cain. According to this view, the Nephilim were simply powerful human tyrants, not supernatural beings, mighty kings who abused their power, oppressing the weak and building civilizations soaked in blood and pride. But does this view explain their uniqueness, their size, their name, their haunting legacy? The text calls them heroes of old, men of renown, but also implies they were a reason God wiped the earth clean. That suggests more than mortal corruption, something deeper, something darker, something spiritually toxic and contagious. So which is it? Angels, kings, something in between? Or is the truth stranger still, that the Nephilim weren't just the result of rebellion, but a symbol of what happens when humanity invites darkness to rule, thinking itself untouchable? The Book of Enoch's account. The Book of Enoch. Not part of most modern Bibles, but once cherished by early Jews and the first generations of Christians. Quoted by Jude in the New Testament, banned by later councils, and in its forgotten pages, the Nephilim rise from shadows into horrific clarity. Enoch speaks of 200 angels, called the Watchers, who gazed upon human women and burned with lust. These weren't angels sent by God. They were deserters from heaven's order. They descended upon Mount Hermon, making a blood oath to defy their creator. Each took a wife, each unleashed darkness into the human world. From these unions came the Nephilim, beings of unnatural strength, insatiable hunger, and violent hearts. They devoured the labor of men. They taught sorcery, enchantments, astrology, and metallurgy, dark arts meant to manipulate creation and enslave souls. They corrupted humanity, reshaped society, and twisted what was meant to be sacred. And when the earth could no longer feed their appetite, they turned to cannibalism. Blood soaked the ground. Humanity cried out in desperation, their voices reaching heaven with grief and terror. God saw that every intent of the heart was evil, and he moved. He sent the archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, to strike down the Watchers, bind them in chains beneath the earth, and bring about the flood. The deluge was not merely punishment, it was surgery, a purging of spiritual contamination from a world infected by supernatural rebellion and spiritual perversion. According to Enoch, the Nephilim's bodies died, but their spirits endured, twisted, restless, hateful. These, it says, became the evil spirits that still wander the earth, the origin of demons. Why was this book cast out? Was it too supernatural, too real? Maybe. Enoch was meant to warn, not comfort. And now the warning is ours. Post-flood giants Goliath and the Anakim. The flood came, the Watchers were imprisoned, the Nephilim were destroyed. Or were they? Centuries later, giants appear again. Towering figures with names like Goliath, Og of Bashan, and the Anakim. Deuteronomy 2 describes entire regions inhabited by tribes of giants, Rephaim, Emim, Zamzumim, each linked to the ancient past. Numbers 13 tells us the spies sent into Canaan saw men so large, they said, "We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." How is this possible? Did the Nephilim return? Did some survive the flood? Or did the rebellion repeat itself through new means? One of the most famous is Goliath of Gath, a warrior over 9 feet tall, clad in bronze armor, his voice dripping with arrogance as he mocked the armies of the living God. Yet he falls by the hand of a shepherd boy, David, with nothing but a sling and a stone. But Goliath wasn't alone. The Bible lists 4 more giants slain by David's men, all called descendants of Rapha, a term directly tied to the ancient Rephaim. The Anakim too are tied to the Nephilim. In fact, the text in Numbers 13:33 explicitly says, "We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim." Could this mean the bloodline persisted somehow? Or perhaps the spiritual corruption that began before the flood still echoed in the post-flood world? A genetic memory, a spiritual contagion, a curse passed through generations of defiance. What's clear is this: the giants of Canaan were not just physical threats. They were symbols of pride, domination, and defiance against God's covenant people. Yet over and over, God empowers the weak to overthrow the mighty. And in their fall we see the lesson. When evil exalts itself, it prepares its own defeat by the hand of the humble. Historical and archaeological parallels. The idea of giants isn't unique to the Bible. Around the world, ancient cultures speak of massive beings who once walked the earth. Could these be mere myth or distorted memories of a shared ancient reality? In Sumerian texts, we find the Anunnaki, godlike beings who came from the heavens. In Greek mythology, the Titans warred against the Olympians. Native American lore tells of red-haired giants who ruled before being destroyed. In Norse legend, the Jotnar were chaotic, primal beings opposed to the divine order. And then, there's the earth itself. Massive megalithic structures, stones too large for even modern machinery, stand across the globe. From Baalbek in Lebanon to the pyramids of Egypt and the ancient walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru. Who built them? How? And why? Some researchers believe these ruins point to a time when the world was shaped by beings of unnatural strength, giants, or those who ruled in their image. Though not proof, these parallels stir questions. Could the Nephilim have left physical traces? Did the ancient world remember them not as myth, but history? Maybe the Bible isn't the only place where the memory of giants was preserved. Maybe the earth itself still whispers their story. The spiritual symbolism. The Nephilim were real, but they were also more than flesh and bone. In Scripture, they symbolize a deeper truth, a spiritual warning etched into history. They represent pride unchecked, power without purpose, creation without the Creator. Whether they were giants of supernatural birth or men corrupted by sin and power, the Nephilim became icons of rebellion, of what happens when divine boundaries are shattered in pursuit of godlike control. They are a reflection of the human heart when it seeks to be as God, rather than walk with Him. Their legacy is a mirror. How many today chase the same rebellion, seeking to transcend limits, rewrite truth, and rule their own kingdoms, regardless of the cost? The Nephilim were wiped away in judgment, but their spirit lingers in the systems of pride, in cultures of domination, in every heart that resists surrender to God's authority. Yet within this dark story lies hope. Because every time giants rise, God raises up a David. He reminds us that no matter how big the opposition, no matter how ancient the darkness, faith still slays giants. And the greatest power isn't size or strength, but obedience to the one who holds eternity in His hands. Conclusion: God's justice and mercy. The story of the Nephilim isn't just a mystery of ancient giants. It's a portrait of a world that forgot God, and the mercy that still pursued it. The Nephilim remind us what happens when the sacred is violated, when divine lines are crossed, when pride becomes religion, and rebellion becomes culture. They were giants, but they were also warnings. Warnings that God's patience has limits. But even as judgment fell, mercy was at work. Amid a corrupted world, God preserved a family. Noah, a man found righteous in his generation. Through him, God began again. And later, through David, He brought victory over Goliath. And finally, through Jesus, He crushed the serpent's sin and death itself. From giants to grace, the Bible draws a clear line. God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So what do we do with the Nephilim today? We remember them not to fear the past, but to guard our hearts in the present, to see how easily we too can fall when we walk in defiance, and to be reminded that no matter how dark the world becomes, God still raises up deliverers, and His mercy, even in judgment, is never far away.